Hello, sophomores. I'm here today to help you sign up for your classes for next year. So I've given you all this form attached to the same document, and I'll be looking at it with you just to make sure that your choices for next year are clear and everybody's getting the credits they need. So I really appreciated having all of you in drafting this year, and it's been really great getting to know you, and let's get you signed up for classes. So I'm just going to go through the schedule and mention everything as we go. First period is taken care of. That's U.S. history. You all have to take it. Second period, Spanish 2. Highly recommend that you stay in it. If you don't stay in it, then your choice is a study hall. But most college programs want you to have at least 2 years of Spanish, and it's a great class, and I think you know Mrs. DeBoer has probably talked to you about why it's a good idea to stay in Spanish. So I'm not going to twist your arm about it, but that's my spiel. And then math is a little different for everybody. There are a couple different groups in your class. Most of you still need 1 year of math to graduate. Our graduation requirement is that you take 3 years of math in your 4 years that you're here. A lot of you will take more than that, and that's okay. So our first option is for those who took geometry last year. You're just going to go into Algebra 2, and that's continuing on our college preparation classes. And if you like, after Algebra 2, next year you can go on to pre-calculus. So that's the most straightforward option, and you just sign up for Algebra 2, third period. Those of you who were in basic geometry last year or already took Algebra 2 last year will be signing up for a study hall. And if you took basic geometry last year, we're going to have you sign up for consumer math during period 4. You can also take consumer math during your senior year if you don't want to take it this year, but it is best just to get it done, and that way next year you can take any classes you want. So fourth period is also the class period for physics, which is one of our harder science classes, and you can use that to obtain a science credit, but I'll get back to that in a minute. I think it's just Bria and Max who took Algebra 2 last year, and Bria and Max are going to have very special instructions. During period 5, you're just going to write in pre-calculus for your classes, and as a senior you'll be taking world religions and church history with that year's juniors. So it's a little different, but just write it in that way. It'll work out, and trust me on that one. So moving on to science, everyone needs to have 3 years at least of science. So you had 1 year freshman year, 1 sophomore year, and between this year and next year you'll need to get 1 more year of science. So it is best if you take at least a year of math or a year of science as a junior. Otherwise, as a senior, you start not being able to fit everything in. So make sure you're in at least a math or a science class, preferably both, but if you're not in both, make sure you're at least in one. And the options for that are 4th period physics, or 7th period human anatomy, learning about the different systems in the human body, or we have a 1 semester course, 8th period during 2nd semester, called environmental science, and that will give you a half a year of science. So those are your 3 options for next year. I would say environmental science is probably the least challenging of those, and physics is probably the most challenging if you're trying to figure out where they fit on the difficulty scale. Human anatomy is really beneficial for people who are going to go into the medical field or physical therapy or something like that, where you learn all the different systems of the body. And let's see, so that takes care of science. So fine arts, a lot of you have your fine arts requirement already done, your requirement to do 2 years of fine arts. If you do 2 years of honors choir, it makes up 1 semester of fine arts. So If you missed, I know one or two of you didn't take photography as a freshman. If you took 2 years of fine art of honors choir, that actually kind of cancels that out. This is getting really complicated, but I think most of you have your fine arts requirements done, either 2 years of band or 2 years of art and photography and drawing, or some combination of that with honors choir. So I'll talk to you individually if that's going to be a problem. Now with art, if you took advanced art last year, I think that was Lizzie, Ellie, Heather, Justin, and Matt. If you want to take more art this year, you don't just sign up for intro to art again. You're going to write studio art in 7th period. And studio art is, well, you know, there were some students in our class last year that had studio art, and it's a self-paced thing where you work on your own art projects every day. And you really have to be reasonable as far as, are you motivated enough to do this? If you're not motivated enough to work on your own art every day, then it's probably not the class for you. So if you're not sure whether it's a good class for you to take, then talk to me and we'll talk it over. And let's see, what else do we need to know? Oh, I was going to talk to you about psychology. Psychology is a class that's only offered every other year. So if you don't take it this year, you will miss it. This is an 8th period class taught by Mr. Westerhoff, and it's about the brain and how it works and why people act the way they do. And it doesn't meet a science requirement or anything, but it is a class that a lot of people enjoy. So just wanted to explain to you what that is. SAT and ACT prep is kind of self-explanatory. It's just all about improving your test scores, learning all the things you're going to need to know for those tests. And that is a pretty popular class with juniors. And that is 2nd semester, 8th period. So the other thing we need to make sure is that you're meeting your PE requirements. So the PE requirements are that you get 2 years worth of PE in the 4 years that you're at Sunnyside Christian. So as a freshman, you had health and you had freshman PE. And so that counted as 1 year. And if you took weight training or anything else, that also counted as a half a year or a whole year, depending on how long you were in it. So you just need to make sure that you've had 2 years of that. So some of you are probably already done with that, and some of you probably only have 1 year so far. So if you didn't take any PE last year, you want to try and get into advanced PE 8th period or weight training 8th period, because you're going to need to have those PE credits in order to graduate. And advanced PE is just 1 semester, but then you can take another semester as a senior. It works out really nicely. And I think that's about all I have to talk to you about. Oh, study halls. So if you are filling out your schedule and you see that, okay, I'm not taking Spanish 2, but I'm also not taking Algebra 2, so I have 2 study halls. You're not really allowed to take 2 study halls, but we have a program where you can become a teacher's assistant for one of your study halls and go and help them, and that counts as a graded class. So you need to have 7 graded classes, but one of them could be as a TA, and we just arrange that with Mrs. Dreesen when you want to TA. So that's the rundown. It's a lot of information, but if you need to watch the video a couple of times for it to make sense, or if you just want to chat with me and have me help you fill it out, that's all right. Junior year is kind of like the most picky to sign up for, and then senior year, it's a little easier because we just go by what you still need. So, yeah, happy signing up, and I look forward to hearing from you. Oh, how you submit these. So I gave you these forms online. Obviously, you can't just fill them out online. Some of you don't have printers at home. So if you do have a printer at home, that's great. Just print it off, fill it out, bring it to the school. We're having a couple of pickup days where you can bring your books back on June 10 through 12. And if you want to bring it in then, that's great. Mrs. Dreesen would love to have them sooner. If you're sending someone through the area, that's great too. But if you are not able to bring it to print off a physical copy of this, you do have the option to just type out your classes that you want very neatly, or write them very neatly on a piece of paper, and it would look something like this. You just want to make sure that you have all the important information. You have your name, you have the grade that you're going into, and for each class period, you've indicated which classes you want to take. And then the other thing is she wants to know if you want to be an honors choir, which I did miss that on this form. If you want to be an honors choir, you're going to circle yes right here. So going back to what we were talking about here, you're just going to list a class or study hall for each class period according to the sign-up sheet that you've been given. And then if you want to, you can bring this with you when you go to bring your books back, and handwritten is fine as long as it's very neat, okay? And if you handwrite it, make sure your parent signs it. If you want to email this to Mrs. Dreesen, you don't need to get your parent to sign it, but we ask that you email it to Mrs. Dreesen and one of your parents at the same time so that she knows that they've seen this and they approve of the classes that you're taking, if that makes sense. So if you have any questions about how any of this is going to work, just let me know. And I hope this video has been clear and helpful. And I miss you guys, and I look forward to seeing you next year.